She slammed the brakes too hard, and we both jerked forward in our seats. But I didn't get angry. I just sat there, staring ahead, because in that moment, I saw myself at her age, spinning out on this very road. There's a quiet kind of terror that sneaks up on you as a parent. It doesn't wear the face of monsters or bad grades. It comes in the shape of your child's hands gripping a steering wheel for the first time. That Saturday, the air in Albuquerque was dry, with the faint scent of juniper carried on a desert breeze. The kind of day that makes you think nothing bad could ever happen. The sky stretched wide and open, the sun already turning the asphalt warm under our feet as we stepped outside. Lena, my 17-year-old daughter, met me by the car with her usual mix of excitement and frustration. Her ponytail was a little messy. She always forgot to tie it properly, and her hoodie sleeves were pushed halfway up her arms. She carried herself like she had something to prove. "Can I back out this time?" she asked, keys dangling from her fingers like a prize. I hesitated. My instinct was to say no. Always no. But I knew better. "Sure," I said. "Let's see what you've got." The car, my old Honda Accord, smelled faintly of dust and pine-scented air freshener, more nostalgia than fragrance. As I slid into the passenger seat, I noticed how the sunlight caught in her hair. A simple detail, but one that reminded me just how much time had passed. She adjusted the mirrors with too much force and slammed the gearshift into reverse. "Easy," I said, voice calm. "You're not in a race." She huffed. "You always think I'm rushing." "Because you usually are." The car jerked back awkwardly before she found her rhythm. We made it to the end of the driveway, then onto the quiet residential street. Lena's jaw was clenched tight, her eyes flicking between the road and the speedometer. "You're holding the wheel like it owes you money," I said with a chuckle. She didn't laugh. "Dad, please." So I went silent. 3 blocks later it happened. We approached a four-way stop. She didn't see it. Maybe she was too focused on the curve. Maybe she was still annoyed at me. Maybe she just forgot. She slammed the brakes. Hard. My seatbelt locked across my chest with a jolt. A water bottle tumbled from the cup holder and rolled beneath her feet. Tires squealed, just a little too long. "Jesus, Lena." "I saw it late, okay?" she snapped, cheeks flushed, hands trembling on the wheel. "You were talking the whole time." I couldn't focus. I exhaled and looked out the window instead of at her. I could feel my heart racing, not from fear, but from something older. Deeper. A memory that never quite faded. "There's a curve about 10 miles from here, off Route 44. You wouldn't think twice about it, just another bend along the ridge. But when I was 19, I took it too fast in a rusted-out Chevy. It had just rained. I wanted to impress a girl. I spun out, rolled the car twice. Woke up hanging upside down, blood in my mouth, the smell of oil and gravel filling my lungs. A passing truck driver saved my life. And that curve? It's never really let me go. I hadn't told Lena that story. Not yet. I always figured she'd hear it when she was ready. She didn't need my trauma. She needed my trust. So instead of scolding her, I leaned back in my seat, resting my hand lightly on the dashboard, another habit from that crash long ago. "You okay?" I asked, softening my tone. Lena nodded, though she wouldn't look at me. "You want me to take over?" She shook her head. So we drove on. The rest of the ride was quiet. But something had shifted. Not just between us, but inside her. I could see it in the way she blinked more often, how her grip on the wheel changed from defiance to care. And in me something loosened too. Sometimes the hardest part of being a father isn't holding on. It's knowing when to stop pressing the invisible brakes. The next weekend, she asked me if we could drive farther out. "Toward the hills," she said. "The ridge roads. Less traffic." I hesitated. The ridge roads. I could already hear the wind rushing past that bend on Route 44, feel the sharp tilt of the wheel as the tires lost grip. But Lena was standing there, hopeful. There was no trace of last week's panic, just a steady, waiting confidence in her posture. So I said yes. We packed 2 bottles of water and an old road map she insisted on bringing for aesthetic, even though she used her phone for GPS. She drove, and I watched her with quiet admiration. Her hands had softened. She checked her mirrors. She even hummed a little under her breath. About 20 minutes in, we hit the stretch I hadn't driven in years. That curve. She didn't recognize it. Why would she? It was just a dip in the earth to her. But I felt every inch of it rising in my chest. I cleared my throat. This road's got a history. Oh yeah, she said, eyes on the bend. Yeah, I wrecked here. Long time ago. I was your age. She turned to me, stunned. You what? Rolled the car. It was raining. Dumb kid mistake. Why didn't you ever tell me? I shrugged. Didn't think it would help. Until now. She looked at the road again, this time slower. Thoughtful. The car dipped into the curve like a memory. She eased into it with the kind of grace I didn't expect. There was no fear in her shoulders. No panic in her hands. Only presence. When we made it past the bend, she didn't speak for a while. Neither did I. There's something sacred in shared silence. Something rare. Eventually, she said, I'm glad you told me. Me too. She didn't break too hard that day. Didn't overshoot any signs. And for the first time in weeks, she didn't fight me. She didn't have to, because she was becoming her own driver, in every way that mattered. And for me, that curve I thought belonged to my past. It became part of her future. And somehow that felt right. The desert plays tricks. It'll show you a sky so clear, so endlessly blue, that you forget it ever knew how to rain. But out here in New Mexico, storms don't ask for permission. They don't tap you on the shoulder. They arrive suddenly, like a test you weren't ready for. Lena didn't notice the clouds right away. She was too focused, too proud of how smoothly she'd handled the first 30 minutes of our drive that Saturday afternoon. This is my best session yet, she said, grinning as we headed north out of town. You haven't flinched once. She wasn't wrong. She'd been solid, confident, careful, even cracking a joke or two. The way she glanced at her mirrors, the timing of her turns, it all told me that something had clicked. She was no longer practicing driving. She was just doing it. I'm impressed, I admitted. Say that again, she teased. Louder for the people in the back. I smiled, leaning back in my seat. Don't push it, rookie. We were about 10 miles outside Albuquerque, winding through the higher elevation roads near Placitas. Lena loved the curves, said they made her feel like she was in a car commercial. But I'd driven these hills for decades. I knew what they could become when the wind changed. And right then the wind changed. The first raindrop hit the windshield with a soft tap. Then another. Lena didn't notice at first. She was too busy laughing at something on the radio. But I saw the storm rolling over the distant mesa, dark, fast, heavy. Hey, I said gently. You see that line of clouds over there? She looked up, squinting. Yeah, weird. It was so clear earlier. That's how it starts. Sure enough, the sky darkened within minutes. Thunder rolled low in the distance, like something ancient waking up. The temperature dropped, and the wind whistled through the cracks in the window seals. Then came the rain, not playful sprinkles, but thick, sharp sheets that blurred everything ahead of us. Lena's hands stiffened on the wheel. Wipers on, I said calmly. Slow it down a bit. She obeyed, but I could see the tension creeping in. Her jaw clenched. Her breathing changed. The road curved ahead, and with the rain hitting harder now, the tires began to hum that wet road hum. Part hiss, part warning. We were approaching the wooden bridge. You want me to take over? I offered. We can switch. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes locked forward, brows drawn in that way I recognized from when she used to struggle with math homework. That stubborn focus that said, don't help me. I have to do this. No, she said, quiet but firm. I've got it. And she did. The car slowed just enough. She guided us through the curve like she'd done it 100 times. A gust of wind rocked the frame slightly, she corrected. The wipers squeaked across the glass in time with her breath. She didn't panic. She didn't freeze. She just drove. And I, sitting beside her, helpless in the best and worst way, felt something shift deep in my chest. Pride, yes, but also grief. A soft, beautiful kind of grief. Because in that storm, my little girl became someone I didn't need to protect anymore. When we reached a clearing and the rain finally let up, Lena pulled into a gravel turnout and turned off the engine. The world was silent, except for the ticking of the cooling engine and the soft drum of rain fading on the roof. "I thought I was going to mess up," she said quietly, still holding the wheel. "But you didn't." I wanted to pull over, but then I heard your voice in my head. "Oh yeah?" I asked. "What did I say?" She smiled a little. "You said, just slow down and trust yourself." I nodded. Smart guy, that voice. She looked at me then, really looked. "Were you scared?" "Terrified," I admitted. "But not of the storm." She tilted her head. "Then what?" "Of letting go," I said. "But you made it easier." We didn't talk much the rest of the way home. We didn't need to. Because storms don't just reveal weakness. Sometimes they show us strength we never knew we had. It's strange how milestones sneak up on you. You think you'll see them coming, the big moments, the transitions. But more often than not, they arrive softly, hidden in the ordinary. Like when your daughter asks if she can take you for a drive. That Sunday evening, Lena walked into the kitchen holding her temporary license with both hands, like it might float away if she let go. "I want to drive you somewhere," she said. "Just us." "Where?" I asked. She shrugged. "You'll see." We got into the Honda. She started it with smooth confidence. No fumbling. No hesitation. I buckled into the passenger seat and realized this was new. This was the milestone. Not her first time behind the wheel. Not the storm. But this. Letting her take me somewhere I hadn't chosen. We didn't talk much at first. She drove through familiar streets, past the grocery store where she once had a meltdown at age 5, past the middle school where I'd waited nervously in the parking lot for her first school dance. And then, she took the road toward the ridge. "You're not about to propose to me, are you?" I joked. She laughed. "No, but I brought snacks." She pulled into the same overlook where we'd stopped during the storm. The sky was golden now, streaked with purple clouds and soft light that made everything feel like a memory already in the making. From her bag, she pulled out 2 vanilla malt milkshakes. "I remembered you liked these," she said, a little shy. I took one. "I haven't had one in years." "I know." We sat in the car, sipping milkshakes, watching the desert stretch out below us like an old friend. And for the first time in what felt like forever, we weren't parent and child. We were just 2 people, sharing a view, a moment, a memory. She told me about the colleges she was considering, about her dreams of studying design. She asked what I had wanted to be at her age. "Alive," I said, half joking. But then I told her the truth, that I'd never imagined a future this good. That fatherhood had taught me more than school or jobs or books ever could. She nodded, understanding more than I expected. "I think," she said, "this is what growing up feels like." I looked at her, not the little girl who used to fall asleep on my chest, but the woman she was becoming. "Yeah," I said, "I think you're right." As we drove home, the headlights lit the road like a ribbon of possibility. And I realized that maybe the point of being a good parent isn't to always lead, but to know when to follow. To trust that what you've built, what you've taught, will carry forward even after you've let go. "Where to now, Dad?" she asked, hands steady on the wheel. I smiled. "Anywhere you want, kiddo. I'm just here for the ride."